Hey, welcome everybody to the first episode of On Authentic Leadership with the Colonel and the Coach. Your host today is Matt Smith, Colonel, U.S. Air Force retired, along with Cam Ellsworth, who just got done with coaching at Norwich University. And we have our first guest who acted as a uniter between the Colonel and the Coach, Captain Matt Burchill, who right now is at Wright Pat Air Force Base getting his master's degree in system engineering, where here fairly shortly he's going to be heading out to Nellis Air Force Base as a flight test engineer.
I think it's pretty unique that we get to have Matt on as our first guest. And I remember him in a leadership position on our hockey team. It's never been about right or wrong. I think it's about people being themselves. And what I was trying to do and the way that I was trying to be a leader, he just saw that as a little bit different than other coaches he's had. And at the same time, he's on the other side of the house or campus, if you will, with you. And he comes to me and says, "Hey, this guy's doing this a little bit different as well. And I think you would really like him," and kind of encouraged me to reach out to you, and kind of led to that conversation behind the volleyball courts, sitting at a table. And again, just, all this years later, here we are.
Right.
And so to be able to like circle back and talk about lessons that he took, and obviously we're both proud of him and our relationship with him. But I think hearing him, everybody will really enjoy the way he's turned in to serve the people around him and to try to make those other people better, the same way that we tried to make, him and his cadets and his classmates better in our time with them.
What viewers are going to thoroughly enjoy just about this video podcast is the fact that Birch is a very humble human being who came from a very humble, hardworking background, and somebody who spent a lot of time watching, listening, and learning from his family, from his community, and sort of had taken those lessons with him, from childhood all the way to, his leadership role, in the U.S. Air Force as an engineer. And I think that if I was to go back and pinpoint one particular aspect of Matt, and I think you're going to see this in the video podcast, is the fact that he didn't try to be someone who he was not. He was very authentic. He had a lot to offer. However, he listened to understand what was going on around him before he offered perhaps a very salient point, or in some cases motivational or inspirational, to the cadets that were around him. And I think that's what makes, Matt Burchill a special person.
Great. I think we hopefully have done him justice, and hopefully people enjoy the conversation, and we'll look forward to any feedback. Please give us feedback. We're really excited to be bringing this to you, and we're really excited about working together, and we're got a lot of these lined up. So hopefully people really enjoy it.
If you're someone that would like to be a guest on Authentic Leadership with the Colonel and the Coach, please reach out to us. Our information is on our website. However, you can also send us an email to leadership@thecolonelandthecoach.com. And we would absolutely love to have you on our podcast, where we talk about everything from, leadership to your professional experiences, personal experiences that shaped you in the role that you served. And we look forward to having you on our show in the future. And again, thank you very much for joining us on this video podcast.
All right, we're off and running. This is a couple years in the making, but Colonel Matt Smith, Coach Cam Ellsworth joining forces, and we thought, as we get off and running, what a better guest to have than Matt Burchill. Matt was a player at Norwich. He was an Air Force cadet, and he was kind of the connector between Colonel Smith and myself 6-7 years ago. So, Matt, welcome.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor and a privilege. I get to help you guys on this new journey.
Yeah, thank you. Why don't you just give us a quick kind of synopsis, maybe what led you to Norwich, or, to meeting kind of both of us, and, maybe from Norwich, where you're at now.
Yeah, definitely. So, how I found myself at Norwich was a little unconventional. I started off, focusing on athletics and hockey all through high school and playing junior hockey. And at that point, I'd committed to the Air Force Academy to play there. And after doing a year there, it wasn't wasn't the best fit for me and what I was looking to do. And so actually, Steve Matson from Norwich was giving me a ring saying that the door was open to play at Norwich. And being an East Coast guy from Massachusetts, it was kind of a no-brainer. I got to be a little, closer to the family, closer to people I had been away from for a while. So that was good. And then really just going out to Norwich, visiting it, seeing, all it had to offer. It was kind of like the perfect trifecta for me, being able to pursue an engineering degree that I wanted, being able to, play hockey for a competitive team, competitive organization, as well as do the Air Force ROTC that was offered at the school. So it was kind of perfect. And then starting off, big transition when you're a rook at the school and trying to make the hockey team, trying to make an impact. So you kind of go through this whole fluctuation of weighing importances, right? You're looking at all your responsibilities and kind of looking at, what do I have to focus on today? And in an environment like that, you have to focus on all those things at pretty much at the same time all day long. So it was just a huge growing experience for me. And then meeting, Colonel Smith, it's kind of he got stationed there to be the commander of the Air Force ROTC unit, and I had commanders before. That's usually how it works in the military: is you have commanders come and you have commanders go, and everyone leaves an impact, different impacts. So I had the privilege to work and learn under Colonel Smith while I was in the Air Force ROTC as a junior and a senior, and then. I also coaches in the same manner kind of come and go throughout their careers. So I had the privilege of gaining Cam yourself kind of on the latter half of my college career. I kind of felt like I met both of you at the perfect time of my life where I was kind of catching stride and figuring out, who I was and who I wanted to be. So it was kind of like both of you were on other ends of my responsibilities and things I was trying to get after, and you were both these leaders, people I was trying to impress, people you're trying to fall in line to, and who you have to listen to, and who are grading you, judging you. And so when you come by two leaders that make such an impact, it's almost like a no-brainer that they don't know each other, but they should know each other. So it all kind of came full circle, and now here we are. So right now, actually, I liked school so much while I was at Norwich that I decided to come back to school. So I am currently at the Air Force Institute of Technology in Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio, doing grad school to get a master's in systems engineering. And I spent the last 4 years down at Eglin Air Force Base as a developmental flight test engineer doing missile seeker and sensor development for aircraft. So that was a great experience down there. And once I finish up grad school here, I'll be heading to Nellis Air Force Base in Las Vegas to work at the Air Force Operational Test and Evaluation Center, doing not entirely sure yet, but it's going to be a lot of operational tests for the fighter jets. So looking forward to that too. But it's been a roller coaster the last 10 years, but I feel like everything happens for a reason, and I've been just honored and privileged to be where I'm at. So thanks for having me on, and like I said, it's an honor to help two great people out with something they envision, and I'm all for it and backing it. So thanks for having me.
Cam, I want to give some comments if you don't mind.
Yeah, jump in.
So Birch, I just it was so easy to, I guess I know you're giving a lot of credit to us, but I just want to say that when you showed up and at the detachment, I mean, I think that was like my very first year was your junior year. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So coming from the Air Force Academy and coming to, to Norwich, I remember one of the things I said to you, because I could tell that like you're trying to do the Rook thing, you're trying to do the Air Force thing, you're trying to do the hockey thing, you're trying to do the life thing. And of course, the Corps is making you do what the Corps is making you do. And I remember telling you, like, hey, I just want you to focus on that. Like the Air Force stuff will take care of itself. And I just hope that you understood that, like, one of our pillars that we talk about is trust, and that I trusted in your level of maturity, what you brought to the team. You were calm, you were thoughtful, you were purposeful, and I just felt like that was just something that we needed at that time. Because arguably, having gone to juniors and then having gone to the Air Force Academy, you're a little bit older than your traditional, first year student at Norwich. But I thought that was a strength, and I thought that I don't know. I don't know if I ever told you that, but if I didn't tell you that, I wanted to tell you that because, like, I just felt like you were just made an immediate impact, and you made my life easier because, it was 300 and something cadets, right? All of them hair on fire, 100 and something rooks, and there was just a lot of chaos that was going on, and I just felt like, if I was playing hockey at Norwich, for Cam, I just figured that was probably something that you get a once in a lifetime opportunity to do, and that you were going to spend at least probably 20 years in the Air Force, and that I felt like you were already good at what you were doing. I just felt like it was my responsibility to hone your skills, right? You already had this wide skill set, if you will, and that if I could just make it sharper and sharper and sharper, then that's kind of what my goal, my goal was. So in addition, that you were getting enough pain thrown at you from the other side that I didn't necessarily need to inflict any more pain ever. So, anyways, that's my opening salvo. I just wanted you to know that I appreciated what you brought to the fight, what you brought to the team, and I felt like your guys' class was just a solid class, and it was just enjoyable to be around all of you guys. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, I appreciate that too. I'm glad you brought it up. That was one of the bigger, I would say, impacts, I guess, to like to me entering, as kind of a leader in the Air Force, because I felt as though I remember you pulling me aside actually and saying that to me, and you were kind of
Yeah.
just like, take a breath, like relax, like it's all right. And I mean, I know you thought he's a little bit older, he's all right, but at the same point, I was still a cadet, and I had never really talked to a full bird colonel off
Yeah.
the books, not
Sure.
getting grilled or anything at my manner. So that was kind of a big thing that I recognized and really kind of hit home for me too, because I was like, all right, if this full bird colonel with a lot of experience, is
Right.
saying to me like, "Relax, I trust you." That was kinda like it was like motivation without being motivating at all. It was
Right.
just like, "All right, this guy kinda trusts me to do what I gotta do, make my decisions, and contribute where I can contribute." And it was like at that moment where you didn't have to say anything to me for probably the rest of our life, but I was always gonna try and do my best for you,
Yeah.
make you proud at that moment, you know what I mean? So that
Yeah.
meant a lot to me, and, I
Yep.
know Cam appreciated it too, because I could kinda, put my full foot into the pool of hockey and, contribute there as just as much, whereas, a lot of times when you focus on one thing, it kinda deteriorates from other areas, and I think just by you creating that balance and trust with me, it was, like, one of the most
Yep.
impactful things in my career at Norwich for sure. So I
I
appreciate
appreciate
that.
that.
Matt, can you talk a little bit about your decision to serve? I mean, obviously in the hockey world, you talked about like, and we run across this, like kids that maybe you're out there running out to Wenatchee or playing junior hockey. Like, was the interest to serve at the front of your mind then? And then obviously when you came here, you had gone through a year at the Air Force Academy, you've gone through their training, and then you still had to do rookdom here. You chose to do that because of your want to serve, and just if you could talk about that decision.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Um, it's kind of interesting. So, geographically, where you're located in the U.S., as far as like growing up, um, you're exposed to the military differently. You have family that has served tried and true, and you're just doing it because that's what they did, and your grandfather did it, your dad did it, your mom did it, whatever it may be. And what I found, at least like at the academy, a lot of times what it was like legacy students. Their grandfather was a general or something, or their parent was a general. And growing up in South Shore, Massachusetts, like I was not surrounded by military at all. You don't see it in Massachusetts. You don't see it walking around. My grandfather served, but he was like drafted, so obviously he had served his time, just like a lot of many others in that generation. But I really had no Like if you asked me as, a junior in high school, if, I had all these hopes and dreams to join the military and serve my country, there's no chance in hell I would have said, yeah, that's probably accurate. Um, but it's funny how things happen. Playing hockey, it's kind of like you're not applying to schools. You'll reach out to coaches and stuff, but it's more or less you take the opportunities that are given to you, and so you're lucky enough to maybe have a good night here. If play like crap another night, then you're never on that team's radar again. And so you're kind of just you got to take advantage of every opportunity you get. And I was lucky enough to play well enough in front of a couple coaches, and two of those were the Air Force Academy and then the West Point coaches during my high school and junior years. And that was the first time actually that the military even came on my radar. I remember getting a couple phone calls. I believe it was from the Air Force, one of the Air Force coaches staff, and I didn't answer it because I was new to the whole recruiting stage. And they left the voicemail saying it was Air Force so and so. And even at that point, living in Massachusetts, I didn't even know the Air Force Academy existed. So I thought it was an Air Force recruiter, just spam phone call, calling me up, trying to, get me to enlist. And I it only took a couple weeks of me not answering that till my junior coach at the time was like, "Hey, this guy called me. He's interested." And at that point, it was one of the first couple Division One interests for to play college hockey that I was shown, and that was really at the time in my life that was like my goal was trying to get a scholarship to help me out get my education, and the best way to do that for the lowest ticket price was to go Division 1. I did not think I was going to play in the NHL. 5'9" defenseman at the time, 170 pounds. It's shooting your shot a little too far, but I was trying to use it to get education. And so the Air Force Academy approached me. They offered me a scholarship, and when I had gone out and saw the campus, I went out, traveled out there with my dad, and it was just like a no brainer. It was like one of the coolest experiences ever. Just seeing the campus, seeing uh, they were pretty smart. They brought me during the summer. So during the summer, there's not a lot of cadets running down the side of the road in line, holding their, briefcases in their hands. So they were pretty good. They showed me all the bells and whistles of the school without showing me the heartaches that come with it, going to basic training and getting yelled at and all that stuff. So I kind of fell in love with it, and the idea that kind of just sparked something inside of me. It was more or less, I've been doing this whole thing. I've never really considered the military, but it was always like, you see the movies, you're like, all right, it must feel pretty cool to, wear the uniform and commit to something bigger than yourself. And everything kind of just fell in line. And, I fell in love with the school. And when I showed up to basic training day one after a couple years of living on my own, playing junior hockey, not doing school, growing as a individual. It was humbling really quick. A lot of times I found myself like, what the hell did I get myself into? As you're eating MREs in the woods, and you're building tents out of sticks, and you're getting screamed at, told to do stuff. It was kind of a full 180 from what I was doing. And I think at the time I was like, this sucks. I could be at some other school playing hockey, chasing girls, having a good time. But I think after going through it, it was almost like you look back on it. That's kind of like one of those experiences that I'll never forget. I definitely don't want to do it again, but it's something I'll never forget. And then my first year at the academy was great. Like I loved the school, loved everything about it. It was just tough balancing academics, being a Division 1 athlete there, as well as they're pretty stern on your military responsibilities too. And I was really chasing doing a career in like my education, something that could use and fall back on like at any time in my life. So I really wanted to do engineering, and I think it would have been tough to pull off. I probably could have done it if I had stayed, but I don't know if I would have contributed hockey and all the rest as much as I could have at Norwich. And so at that point, really, uh, it was a no brainer. I decided to go to Norwich, and yeah, that was kind of like the best decision ever. I got to focus on on hockey, on school, on everything, and kind of like be the best version of myself doing it all. I did leave the Air Force, giving up the scholarship, giving up the guaranteed contract. But when I left the school, that was almost like it had sparked something inside of me where I was like, you know what, as I know I'm leaving this school, but I don't want to leave the Air Force. Like that was something that I truly fell in love with at the academy. And I wanted to take that with me. And so when looking for another school, obviously, you could transfer D1 or something, but Norwich kind of had the best thing to offer where I could continue to chase my, Air Force dreams and everything at once. So, yeah, I mean, made a long story long, but it was like I had no aspirations to join the Air Force, but the Air Force found me, and I was just honored that it did, and I love being in the Air Force. I love doing it.
I think you ended up getting a scholarship too, didn't you, while you're at Norwich?
I did, yeah. So that was, I was a little bit older, and my parents. So my dad's a fireman, my mom's a dental hygienist. They've like worked their asses off their entire lives to give us everything,
Right.
literally everything. And so that was one of the things. It was if I leave this school, like then I potentially have to pay for school, and I'll have to
Right.
make that work somehow. So I actually, when I walked in to Norwich, I had talked to one of the Norwich leaders. I forget who it was in the admissions department, and I pretty much just said, what's the best way to get an Air Force scholarship? And they said, well, you got to do like something technical, and it's got to be one of the hardest things you offer. So I'm like, all right, what do you offer? What's your hardest major? And he said mechanical engineering. I go, all right, sign me up for it. We'll do it. And that was kind of it. And then yeah, I had gotten a ROTC scholarship, which was honored after I think my first quarter, and I was kind of right back in. So that was a big help. And I mean, it's almost like if you're willing to serve on the back end, it's like it's one of the greatest opportunities to be able to get your school paid for and do all that. So
Awesome.
Matt, what one of again talking about we're launching this, and we're going to hopefully expand on a lot of pillars, but one that kind of become the boogeyman for I think a lot of people in society is accountability. And one of the most impactful moments in my coaching career was with you. I don't know how much you remember this, but I'm going to tell it the best way I can. First year head coach, you're coming off a year where you're playing D forward. You hadn't found your stride yet. And at the same time, you're a Division I transfer on a Division III team. So there's expectation, there's a lot of emotions, right? And to start, I still remember our first game as my time as head coach, and Norwich being a private military university, having you and Bush out of the lineup, right? As an Army and Air Force guys. So, anyways, you had not reached your stride, I would say. And I remember, I don't remember what game, but we had kind of a routine. We play Friday, have video Saturday, go over to the calf or chow and have a team meal. And it gets to the point where you haven't played yet, and you asked to speak to me. And this is my first year head coach. This is my first one-on-one, and I'm like, here we go. It's going to be the complaint. It's going to be it's your fault. And again, I don't know if you'll remember it as clearly as I do, but basically you sat down and you said, Coach, like, don't worry about me. I can see you're stressed. I can see that you're worried about me, and like, I have to be better, and I will be better, and I will find myself better, but you don't have to worry about me. And again, from a first year head coach, I don't know if I've ever given you the gratitude of like what that meant to me, of again, your maturity. It's easy to fast forward and say, hey, we had a great relationship. It's easy to fast forward and say, hey, you were a captain, you were a C, you were a leader. Those things were all bestowed upon you because of who you are. And I just think that moment in time is etched in my brain. And I think it's important for people to realize, like, all of your good came after that accountability, and you didn't say it was this guy's fault or that guy's fault or this transition or this on my plate. You said, I'm going to figure this out. And again, for you to like take care of me as a first-year guy. I just thought it was like one of the wildest things I've ever been a part of in 17 years of coaching.
Well, yeah, I mean, I actually remember that vividly. I mean, how could I forget the wonderful cafeteria for me? But no, I definitely remember that, and I think like I kind of said earlier, like hinted on it. We kind of met, I guess, at the right times. I remember talking to you when you first showed up in the library, and you were, trying to just meet players, and you kind of were explaining how you were, more of an assistant role at Lowell, and this was kind of like you coming in, and we had a coach prior for a long time, and you were trying to get gauge on how everything was going, and um, it was more or less like, I guess, as hockey players, people on the outside who don't know like really and truly how it is, it's a tough road. I know I didn't even play any professional hockey or try to, but it's tough the whole way through. So playing junior hockey, you're almost like a piece of property. You could be traded, you could be cut, you could, if you're not producing, you'll get moved. They'll try and bring in assets for you, and it's definitely a business. And I think playing junior hockey and playing for a few teams and few coaches, and you get scratched out of the lineup, it's kind of like the easiest thing is to just blame the coach because they're the one making the final decision. But I think after so many years of doing that, and don't get me wrong, I've blamed my fair share of coaches through my career on me not playing well, but I think it was just the whole, playing junior hockey, going to the academy, and all these different experiences. By the time I had got to Norwich, um, it was almost like I had just realized, anything in my life that I have control over is, on me to control. And I had kind of like you said, I was Division 1 player playing D3. So when I first showed up, it was like, you think you're just gonna walk in and be the star on campus, and everything's gonna come easier. But what people don't realize is the level between a Division 1 program and a very high Division 3 program is not much different. And kind of going back to what I was saying, it's like you just you get lucky and play in front of the right coach on the right night. And so maybe I got luckier than the other guys in the locker room on my Division 3 team, and played well the night there was a Division 1 coach interested. Any player on my Division 3 team could have played in a Division 1 program, and I learned that real quick. First couple days of skating with them, you kind of get tossed in there, and the level is not significant where I was going to make a serious impact, and I kind of realized that. And so my mindset is it's like if I'm gonna play and get the ice time, it's gonna be on me, and if I don't, it's also gonna be on me too. And I think when you first showed up, it was kind of like a clean slate, right? So I had someone new to see me as. I mean, you knew I was a Division 1 player, but I was just another player in the locker room. And I think my approach to it was if I trust him to make the right decision, then I have to, put the trust in myself to admit to not playing well enough or not working hard well enough. And it kind of just I feel like that was kind of a turning point where I was like, you know what, hockey is great. I love hockey. I love it all it does for me, but also it's not going to make or break my life. So it was kind of just being able to take a step back, grow a little in myself, and see like if the product is crap, I don't expect the product to play every night. And I'm glad I kind of surprised you in taking that approach. But like I said,
Well,
I've
no,
I've I've complained about coaches plenty in my life, but it wasn't going to be at that time.
I think it's important to talk about again the second half of that, and major turning point is I don't remember exactly if or when if you played before this, but we had a tournament right after Christmas, and our captain at the time, Dave Robertson, gets hurt, and we don't know how serious it is, but he had a big voice and a big impact in our room, and he can't play for the Saturday game. And so I'm talking to him, and we're talking about lineup, and I'm like, Dave, nothing matters except the room. So who's going to take care of the room? And again, that decision became very easy. Again, for people that don't know, we're able to, in college, able to dress either 7 defensemen or an extra forward. You can dress an extra player. And we dressed Birch that night as the 7th D for the sole purpose to take care of our room. And in that game, you started as the 7th. You ended that game somewhere in the top 4, and I don't think you ever came out of the lineup after that. Is that fairly accurate as you would recall?
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. It was kind of like, and Dave is still to this day one of my best friends. It's like when you're given an opportunity, you kind of have to make the most of it. And being a part of a team, it's not just like, in basketball there's 5 of you on the court. Well, in hockey, there's 25 of you, and you really need to find your way to contribute to the team, and the overall goal. And at the time, uh, being in the Air Force, having a lot of, individual experiences with leadership and how to work with people. And I think at very different experiences, not often uh, do you have the military leadership as well as the athletic leadership, and being able to kind of fuse those. And so I just figured, this is my opportunity. How can I contribute? And I think not even just being a voice. I don't even think I was going after being a leader. I think it was just, I cared about, all the guys on the team, and I cared about their success. Honestly, I probably cared about a lot of their success more than my own. As far as like hockey, it was, these guys are trying to play pro and make it. And, I already signed my contract. I know what I'm doing in, 3 years or so. So, I was kind of just trying to, bring up everybody around me. And I think in doing that, it kind of reflected as like being a vocal leader. But really, I was just trying to be like a cheerleader for, my boys in the locker room, to be honest with you. But like, as far as the leadership piece, like, I had the I've had the privilege to learn from like military leaders, and then obviously in the athletics. And a lot of times when you have a person who's just gone through one of those, you're taught the same way growing up through the ranks. And I feel like it kind of reflects in some situations where the first leader is kind of like the next, because you all were taught the same ways. And I think I was lucky enough to, have experiences on both sides of the ball, and kind of fuse my athletic and leader and military stuff. And it's not like I'm a better leader or felt like I was. I just felt like I was able to contribute in different ways that most of the traditional leaders were at the time. So, and a lot of times there weren't, for us, you can probably admit to this too, there's not a lot of military people at the school that can contribute to the athletics as much as I was lucky enough to be able to, and Ryan Boucher was able to. It's tough to balance, but I think being able to do both of those and bringing in a fused perspective really helped me. And like I said, just being a cheerleader to my boys in the locker room, that was kind of it.
Hey, Birch, I want to ask you a question, and it has to do with culture. One of the things that just over the last couple of years, I just spent a lot more time with the team in the locker room, in Cam's coach's room, on the ice. Well, at least off the ice, looking at the ice, just because I struggle with skating. But and I want to get your perspective on the how important culture is, establishing the right culture, maintaining the right culture, and then sort of guiding a team, whether that's a team of 4, a flight of X number of people, you know, a hockey team of 31 or whatever. Just want to get your perspective on that, because just from my perspective, I saw how well, like, just Cam established the sort of the foundation for the culture that you guys had on the hockey team. And I think that just unknowingly, I'd like to think that from an Air Force perspective, we established a similar culture just from a detachment perspective, right? When I look at like your teammates, the Callahans of the world, and the other folks that you graduated with, I got lucky, I know, in the leaders that you were, and how you guys, the foundation that you guys provided just as people and as cadets. But just your perspective on the culture on the culture piece. And maybe it's a not necessarily an us versus them, but just how you see it. And especially, I think you're a captain now, and you're gonna when you get to Nellis, and you're gonna be a lot of fighter pilots, a very fighter pilot-ish community, which is great opportunity for someone like yourself to influence that aspect of things. So, anyways, over to you.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think again, I kind of credit the culture piece and how it impacted the ROTC detachment and the hockey team. I kind of just accredit that to being surrounded by some great people, like you said, like the Callahans and all the other people
Yeah.
that I was in a
Right.
class with. I think what separated our group, from whether it be the older kids who had already graduated and commissioned, or the younger kids, it was I feel like collectively we were all kind of on the same page as far as we were just trying to make the whole picture better. I don't think there was one of us who was, you know, comparing ourselves to each other. We were never, trying to get the highest rank in anything. It was all just how can I do my part to make this whole boat row a little faster. And I think that's huge as far as culture. Kind of like you said, culture is so important, and it's one thing like I felt anyone can say we have culture, and I'm doing my part to contribute to that culture. And uh, it's when you start getting in groups of more than four, like you said, up to 30 people, it's culture can be a great thing to talk about, and it can be a
Right.
great thing to preach. But um as far as like getting people to like truly buy in and believe in what you're trying to do, I think that's the biggest shift. It's like uh if you have a culture and you have to ask somebody what that is, that's when your culture is not strong, right?
Right.
And
Right.
uh, we saw it, in the ROTC thing. We had a great culture in our group there, and you never had to really ask somebody to go and do something. They were already doing it. They
Right.
were doing it for reasons, that were bigger than
Right.
themselves. And
Right.
I think that was great. People were stepping up in roles, not because, I mean, they had to, but it was because, something had to get done. Um,
Right.
and and it wasn't even like we talked about it. None of us had to really, communicate to each other like, hey, this is our
Right.
culture. Make sure we're sticking to it. It was like
Right. Right.
everybody everybody knows what we have to do, and it doesn't matter whose nameplate is doing it. It's just as long as it gets done. And I think we had enough people, in our grade to buy in on that everything just ran smooth. And I mean, I don't know how you thought we were
Yeah.
as a unit, but I think looking back, like I just was lucky enough to be surrounded by people that were driven in the same direction, kind of as myself.
Yeah, before I hand it back over to Cam, how I would describe you guys, and I tried to do that when on the commissioning day, the day that you guys earned your rank, your second lieutenant rank, was just there was a lot of selflessness that took place, right? I mean, there was just a lot of people who just didn't necessarily care about the accolades, and I think that made it easy for me as quote unquote overall leader. But I also thought that like you guys weren't like pining for like that next rank or that next acknowledgement or or whatever that next level of recognition. I think you guys arguably saw the good in your team through your own selfless actions. And like, I think that was special. I mean, you look at Callahan, right? The guy was a firefighter since he was like 10 years old. You know what I mean? Like, I know I'm being funny, but he just, that was kind of how he was. And I think that's also the household that you grew up in as your dad is a firefighter. All those actions are exceptionally selfless, right? I mean, to be able to put your life on the line for somebody else and want to achieve a desired effect and not necessarily care about who gets written up or who gets the credit. I mean, that's how I would describe you guys, and not just your class, but I think that during the time in which you were there, I felt like that a lot of you guys had that. And I think that you guys also poured that into the hockey team, or at least I saw that from my perspective as an outsider, a guy who never played hockey in my life. I put myself in that locker room, and whether it was a guy that wore a C or an A or a guy that didn't wear the leadership, I think that they looked at themselves as someone who tried to make their fellow locker mate better, and their fellow teammate better. So, anyways, but
Yeah.
thanks for that, Birch.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like the culture thing I was saying for our Air Force attachment, it was the same in the locker room in hockey. It's like, every team, has a slogan. At the beginning of the year, you get a new group of guys, and you come up with this saying that you want to stick. And it might take weeks, it might take months, it might never stick. And
Right.
uh, the saying is still there, but the
Right.
saying is just words on T-shirt or words on a banner or something like that.
Right.
But until like every guy in the locker room
Uh,
kind of
right.
believes in it and acts it and wears that kind
Yep.
of tried and true every day is like when you kind of start seeing the success of it.
Yep. Agreed.
Bert, coming back, going into mechanical engineering, and so you had to take an extra year of school. So you went in and we tried to get you to play for that year, but that didn't work. And then obviously COVID happened, and now all of a sudden you're a coach. Um, do you have anything back? I mean, I have a couple ideas in my head, but like anything that you think that you made that when you saw it from the other perspective, like that you said, man, I had an impact on that. And again, I got some things that I think, but I just wonder if there's anything that you saw going from player to coach for a year, if you're like, man, I impacted that.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think, well, I know it was kind of crazy with the whole COVID year thing too, but it was when I transferred, I was a transferring sophomore, but when you get the 4-year ROTC scholarship, then you got to stay for the 4 years. So I was lucky enough to be able to stretch it to 5. Um, but but no, it was when I started coaching, it was kind of like a no-brainer for me because I don't know if you kind of saw this too, but on the back end of, my playing career, I kind of felt, I mean, we had a lot of younger guys, but I kind of felt like I was coaching then a little bit too, and not coaching people's like hockey abilities because I mean, I wasn't the guy to start teaching hockey abilities, but I felt like I had kind of already got to that point with a lot of our freshmen. And when I did transition to like an actual coaching role, um, and I was running the defense, and a lot of the defense were the younger guys that I kind of just take it upon myself to you know just make them all feel like they were important. Kind of just doing the stuff that maybe didn't maybe I missed out on as a freshman or a younger guy on a team. Kind of just like the things like I would have hoped happened, like going to a team meal and having one of the older guys just talk to you about anything. It doesn't have to be hockey, and just little things like that, and connecting with people and just making them all feel like they're worthy and important. And I think that was my biggest piece was I I kind of use my experiences as far as, getting scratched. You could be a Division 1 transfer, but you're going to get scratched at a Division 3 school. And all these people are, looking at you, trying to blame you. And I would kind of use my experience as like, it's not his fault. He's going to make a decision. And, you have to make his decision easy by, showing that you can do it and believing in yourself. And I think I lacked a lot of confidence in my first couple of years, and I was trying to just build the confidence in these younger guys. I mean, if you don't have confidence as a player, you really can't you can't play at all, and it takes away from all the areas of being an athlete. And so I think just trying to connect with like the younger guys and give them confidence and give them a sense of purpose. And I think I really noticed that when I started coaching with you because these guys were players and they were probably like a lot better players than they were the year prior when they were on my team. And they were looking at situations with kind of a whole different perspective. They were trying to be a leader, trying to be a part of the leadership team, and I think by doing that, being better teammates, their play got significantly better too. And I think just being able to connect with them. I mean, I went from being their teammate to being their coach, and so I think when I would say to them like, "Hey, that was a terrible play," they were like, "All right, well." I watched him play the last couple of years, so I know if it was a terrible play, he's calling me out for a good reason. Um, but I think it was just I was able to impact by connecting with them, and I think that was my biggest strength as a coach. I don't know what you saw.
Yeah, I agree. I also think your service. So again, I left Lowell and the Division 1, you're a little spoiled. You got unlimited budget. You got people that somebody books your hotels, somebody orders your gear, you get unlimited sticks. It's a great experience. And then I came here and we didn't have somebody, and you're sharpening skates and another guy's pushing laundry, and the service that you provided and I think I tried to provide. But I remember, our first year we ended up in Stevens Point, and we're sitting there and everybody's got like an equipment guy, and you and Swice are at the rink sharpening everybody's skates on game day. All these other kids are at home having a pregame nap, and there you are with and you and Connor, and you guys are sharpening everybody's skates. And it was very impactful for me because I went from like, holy cow, like this is crazy, we don't have somebody, to the point where even as transition happened in the last few years, and they posted the job, and I said, no, we take care of ourselves. And that was a standard that you set, and that was a standard that our guys have lived by. And so I think little things like that, I think that takes a lot of effort. But I also think taking the extra second to build somebody up, to give them confidence, to show humility, it probably takes about the same amount of time as to ignore them, or the same amount of time as to put them down. And I think you did a great job of just finding ways to insert yourself and serve the people around you.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, it's kind of like, granted, I grew up with a skate sharpener, so I was pretty good at sharpening skates. So that was an easy way to contribute. But I think too, it was just me and Swice at the time were playing a lot. So we were kind of in those top pairs of getting ice time, and being able to do something. It kind of was like, all right, if some of the guys see us sharpening skates, then if something's got to get done, they're not going to think twice of doing it. And I think we just did it because we could sharpen skates and we wanted to help out everyone else. But I think kind of like you said, it was, it wore off, and I think everyone just collectively were like, oh, I'm not better than the rest. I'm not above anyone. I'm not above any job. And so I think that, like you said, a simple little thing of sharpening skates carried over onto the ice too. No one wants to block a shot, but I'm not better than the next guy, so I got to block it.
Hey, Birch, remind me what your duty title is going to be when you get to Nellis. Is it systems engineer? That's the major that you're doing right now, right?
Yeah, so I'm doing a systems engineering master's degree, but I'll be a flight test engineer, a developer.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
a
so
flight test
so
engineer.
fl so flight test engineer. So how would you say, like, are there examples just in your daily life, not necessarily in academia? Maybe there are at Wright Pat. By the way, I've never been to Ohio in my life, so your your experiences there. I don't really have. I've participated in Wright Pat training programs, but I've never done actually anything at Wright Pat. Do you feel that, just drawing the correlation between whether it's being a skate sharpener, or whether it's just leading through your example on the ice, or whether it's, through your coaching, in the coaching room with Cam, how would you say that parlays into your experience in the Air Force and the leading by example there? Or do you feel like you're, as an engineer and an officer, that maybe you don't have as many opportunities as, say, somebody else would that does other things? So,
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I'll speak mainly on my job when I was down at Eglin Air Force Base. It kind of all came like together to fruition. So to kind of lay it out, as a test engineer down there, you're pretty much an individual that is representing the Air Force with all these defense contractors. And so you're like the one Air Force person that is coordinating, directing, and executing a flight test. And in the flight test, you have the whole air crew, but then you have the system crew. So since it was in developmental engineering, a lot of these are just systems. So your various sensors, and so what
right,
you have to do is you kind of have to culminate different areas. So there's like the ground targets, people
right,
that are setting out the tanks and the surface to air missiles,
sure,
and then there's the air crew, and then there's the system crew, and the system crew and air crew might be a Northrop Grumman or a Boeing or something like that. The
sure,
ground targets crew is going to be your civil servants who work for the Air Force, and then you have the
right,
test crew, and so it kind of like came full circle for me where I was kind of leading a test team. And that could be 40 people, it could be, 12 people, whatever type of aircraft it is. But the whole leading by example thing, it definitely, it showed up a little more often than I thought it would. But we were down in Florida, it's hot, you're out on these ranges, it's dirty, it's messy, and there's jobs that you do and don't have to do as an officer in the Air Force. And I kind of looked at it as, I am an officer, but I like to consider myself a hardworking person. And I used to build houses growing up, and I've been a laborer in the union in Boston, and so I appreciate a good hard day's of work. And so, whereas I feel like being out on the range, setting up these targets, getting dirty, and hanging up nets and decoys and all these other crazy things, I didn't have to do that. It wasn't in my job description. All I had to do was plan and coordinate and run the mission. I didn't have to leave an office if I didn't want to, but we're assigned, a small crew of individuals, and I didn't even realize it, but I would just always be out, out getting dirty, out doing all the hard work, and I didn't realize for a while that I was even doing that, and that was like impacting them until a couple of years later, where some of these guys who that was their only job was to go out, get dirty, and do all this kind of grunt work, where they're reaching out to me saying, "Hey, like you're the first." Officer, or you're the first test engineer that came out and set up these nets with us in 5 years or something like that. And I hadn't even realized that I was, doing something extraordinary, you know what I mean? But these guys were always like, whenever I had a test I had to do, these crews of guys who I would work with, they would all raise their hand and be like, "Oh, I'll help. I'll be on this test," or I'll do this mission. Lieutenant Burchill's on it. I'd love to go do that one. And it got to the point where these are people that, I mean, in a sense, were subordinates. They were working underneath me, but I think after like a year of working with them and kind of doing stuff outside of my duty description, I didn't have to ask them to do anything ever again. Every time I went to go do something or to do it, help them out with it, it was already done. And I don't know if
Right.
like they were doing that for other tests, but these guys were like an ultimate crew. Like they would do stuff before I even asked, and uh, they loved working with me, and I loved working with them. And I think that's kind of the same thing that went on in the locker room and in ROTC. It's like
Right.
these little aspects just carry over, and you don't even realize it till maybe after the fact.
Yeah, so if you look at the website, if you look at some of our documentation, Birch, what you just described was purposeful leadership, is leading by example, is demonstrating to your team that in order to accomplish the mission, my actions impact what it is that we're being asked to do. And I think that I always looked at you as the kind of guy that would do that anyways. And I just think that, as you go on in your Air Force career, if you can continue to do that, I think you're going to find great success just because of how, you carry yourself like that without thinking about it. That's just who you are, and I think that's just something that is unique and special. So please continue to do that.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's kind of like I said, like I wasn't, tried and true grown up to be in the military. It just kind of found me, but
Yep.
um I'm still, trying to figure out obviously, the importance of the rank system and what they have, but uh
Yeah.
I mean at the end of the day, like we're all human beings, and we're all able, and uh
Right.
I don't think it matters. I mean, I can say that as a younger officer, but
Right.
I truly don't think that a rank truly describes someone's abilities and decision making. And I think we all have to contribute to the best we can, and however we
Right.
can.
Right.
Some of the best ideas might come from an airman, right?
Right. Right. I agree.
Birch, I was telling Colonel Smith about this and wondered if you could elaborate, but I've never worn this. I don't know if you remember this.
Oh yeah.
And one of the coolest things, and Colonel Smith was talking about at your commissioning, right? I was lucky enough to be there. And then you walked up to my place, and Papa Burchill was there, And again, kind of a crazy time, but your relationship and with me and with your family was always impactful. And again, I've never worn this came off the rack here, so but honored to be linked with you guys. Again, I know what it means to me, but if you could maybe just talk a little bit about why I get to wear a Quincy Fire Department hat.
Oh yeah, were you lucky enough to get did he sign his in there?
I got your signature. M. Burchill 3, baby.
Oh, you got mine. Um, I mean, obviously, like family's the most important thing, and family can mean the people that are in your immediate family, blood related, but family can also mean those closest to you, and I think it's like life's too short to not cherish those moments with your family, and my family is all they're kind of homebodies, and they're all from Massachusetts. All my extended family is is from Massachusetts. That's all they've ever known. My dad's a fireman there. Everyone's worked there. My grandfather was a Boston fire chief. My uncles are all Boston firemen. My little brother is a fireman now too. But it's like as soon as I started playing hockey, it was moving around. I was, in out in Seattle playing for Wenatchee. I was in Colorado at the academy. I was all up through Canada playing in British Columbia. It's like by me doing that, I was kind of able to like open a door for my family, but my dad in particular, he kind of used that as like I have never, been to these places. I have never had a reason to go to these places. I haven't met people outside of, people from Massachusetts. And that was just kind of the thing, like how when they were raised, it was, you grew up in the area, you stayed in the area, you worked in the area, and you never left the area. And so for the most part, all the people you were meeting were from the area. And I think by me, chasing all these crazy hockey dreams and Air Force dreams now, moving around, it's like it's given my dad like this this whole new life and experiences of traveling and meeting people that he never would have met. I mean, after a couple drinks, he talks to me about it all the time, but he's just like, it's the greatest thing. He's like, he talks about some of the people that I have brought into his life that he's met through me, like you included, and he's just like means as an older guy, he's like it means so much to like have these experiences through my kid, and so he loves hearing what I'm up to, who I'm hanging with, and he always just loves being a big part in that, and he's been my biggest supporter, through hockey, through military, everything. Obviously, a role model. He raised three knucklehead sons. My mom, obviously, one of the strongest ladies I know to be able to raise three knucklehead sons. I'm sure it was, tough. A lot of late nights staying up, hoping you're not getting a phone call you don't want to get. But no, they're great. Family is so important, and kind of like I was saying, it's like you obviously by you getting a Quincy Fire hat from him just means that you have somehow impacted him, whether you know it or not, in a positive way, and he kind of does that as like a remember us. We might be moving on, but you'll always be family to us. That's for sure. So I think he likes to hand that out as a token, but it means he likes you. So
Well, it's much appreciated, and I think most people would remember when they graduate for your self graduation, followed by commissioning, and that is a time with family. And you guys walked up the hill, and we sat outside the fire and connected, and I thought that was like a really cool moment and very generous token. So I thank you.
yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, like the commissioning thing, it's like from an outsider, you don't realize what that means. And for me, I feel like the whole commissioning ceremony meant a little bit more just because it was 5 years of ups and downs and putting all the work in. And it was kind of like, it wasn't me it was almost a ceremony for me, not me entering active duty as an officer. It was like, all right, you made it through this, and now you can move on, but you made it through the hardships and stuff like that. So I think it was more of like a graduation than like a becoming an officer for me.
Remind me, Birch, your dad's name is Tim. Is that right?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Tim.
Okay. All right. I got a 1 terabyte hard drive, but I got a 166 processor, so I had to think about it for a few minutes. So,
Yep.
hey, so if Mr. Burchill Senior was to receive the colonel and the coach swag, maybe he could don his melon with a hat or something like that. Do you think he would appreciate that, just as he's been a center of this conversation today?
Oh, absolutely. He'd be all fired up. He would
All
love it.
right, cool, awesome. Birch, we want to be respectful of your time, but how much time do you have?
I'm
Do you have?
good. I
Okay.
cleared the schedule for you guys, so
Oh, thank you.
whatever you need out of me, I'm here.
All right. Does that mean that I need to call some like engineering chair here in a bit and get an excused absence or something like that?
No,
Are we good?
I'm actually on spring break this week.
Okay. All right.
Yep. The wife's out of town. She's working in Nashville, so it's uh it's a one man show this week. Vacation.
Yeah. Several years ago, Birch, I'm not sure that you'd be in Ohio for spring break. You might be like, in
Down
the
in Destin.
yeah, down in Destin, the white beaches of Florida or something like that.
I
Yeah,
know. I was lucky enough to live in a vacation spot, so I never had to take any vacation. But
I
here
know.
I'm looking for a little warmth. But I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
we're I'm saving up my leave and saving up my money for a 2 week trip to Italy and Greece to celebrate our marriage, I guess.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, hey, Birch, before I forget, probably next is when you go out to Nellis, you'll certainly probably be like a flight commander again, and who knows, I don't know what in your world if you guys have like ADOs and DOs and all that sort of stuff, but just for that first command opportunity, can you just make sure that Cam and I are on that invite list so that we can attend, if you don't mind?
Absolutely, you guys will be on that list, but it's kind of different. I know you were in a more operational
No, yeah, material
manner.
leader and stuff like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
right,
So I mean, it's a lot of we have ADOs, we have DOs, we have squadron commanders, flight commanders, all that. But
right,
since it's in, or at least in my previous job, I think the Nellis job will be more, military based. But what we were
yeah,
doing was, heavy civilian as well. So
right,
I mean,
right,
it's a little bit different culture, but no,
right.
absolutely, you guys will definitely be coming.
Yeah, Nellis is a different beast. Home of the fighter pilot. It's a great place to be stationed. Ironically, I was an operational test and evaluation group commander out there, so we did C2 and ISR operational tests, and just utilizing the ranges and utilizing the virtual infrastructure that exists out there. So it's an incredible opportunity for you, for sure. And unfortunately, you probably won't be able to talk about it a lot at home, but certainly I think job satisfaction will be high. And if you're looking for a place to live, please let us know or let me know before you make the plunge, because there's great places to live, and then there's just interesting places to live when you get out there.
Interesting. All right, I like that.
Yeah.
I'll definitely let you know.
Yeah.
Birch, maybe we could wrap up with something. I think anybody that's been around you, there's a level of natural to you. There's a level of comfort, but also I think in this conversation in our relationship, you've gotten better, right? And you've gotten better. You've made other people better. You've made me better. I'm sure you've made Colonel Smith better. Maybe just talk about whether that's a mindset or what you think that process looks like, how you maybe aspire to kind of continue to grow, even though you do have some great natural qualities.
Hey, Birch, as you answer that, like if you could answer that in the context of just being your authentic self, because just to add on to what Cam says, we think that you're just a very authentic individual, and what you see is what you get. And obviously, we love what we see and what we get. But I think that's just one of your strengths as well, is being yourself and not trying to be somebody else who you're not. So, anyways, over to you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it was kind of funny. And we're finishing up with this because you were talking about cutting the video, and I'm like, yeah, I am what I am. You're gonna get what you're gonna get. And to my demise, sometimes I am myself all that too often, in maybe situations I shouldn't be. But it's more or less just I would say it's a mindset, but it's also just being true to yourself. You don't want to. I felt like, if you're trying to be something else, and you're trying to, put on an act, if you actually get to where you want to be by putting on that act, then you're kind of stuck in the act. You don't want to be showing all these different characteristics about yourself and like pretending to be a leader or pretending to have a mindset that you don't, because if you actually reach where you want to be, then you're expected to uphold the act, and I think that's hard, and it's of itself it's kind of stressful, and I think the biggest part of I guess who I am today and all the growing that I had done, it was kind of rooted from you just all you can do in this world is do your best at any given moment, and like I said, life's too short to be stressing out about things, so being able to kind of have a calm and cool collected mindset even if it's in a stressed environment, um, just realizing that you're gonna fail. I mean, you're not gonna impress everybody. Being your true self might not get you the role that you want, or it might not get you the job title you want, or it might not get you into the school you want. But at the end of the day, you should be able to go to sleep happy knowing that you are who you are, and you got to be proud of are. And then in being proud of who you are, you have to try to make the best decisions. And I mean, it's hard to do. I don't make the best decisions, often. There's many times where I'm like, wow, probably shouldn't have done that, but I did it, and it's almost like no regrets, right? It's like you love the people you live with, and you don't have regrets. Whatever you do, I mean, you make your bed, you're sleeping in it, and I think my dad taught me that growing up. He treated us as adults at a very young age. I'd say I was like a freshman in high school being treated as like a senior in college, and pretty much what my parents would tell us is, you can go out tonight, you can do whatever you want to do tonight, but just know tomorrow morning when you wake up, you have to live with those decisions that you made tonight. And I think that really just stuck with me as far as my maturity was, is this is my life. I am the only one who really is in control of my fate, of my destiny, and uh, by my parents and trusting in me kind of was like, okay, I got to make them proud and make the right decisions. And I think that carried over into college, where Colonel Smith, you were trusting me to make decisions on my own and, fulfill my responsibilities as I needed to, that I thought I needed to. And coach gave me a lot of responsibility, and it's one of those things. Is I was taught at an early enough an age where you're given these responsibilities. It's your job. You figure it out however you want to do it. I probably could have pissed away a lot of those opportunities, but I didn't. I tried my best not to, and I think it was just like you said, a maturity and a mindset thing. And it's not like I don't wake up every day and I'm not like, I want to be a leader. I don't say, I want to make good leadership decisions. It's kind of just being able to, tackle all these little, scenarios, and not even making the right decision, just making a decision that I believe in and that, represents who I am. And I think uh as much as like you can grow, you can talk to people and learn from experiences, but there's really no black and white book on how to be a leader, how to be a good person, and it's different for everybody. And so I think uh, the whole mindset thing, it is a mindset, but it's more of trying to just truly believe and commit to that. And uh, it's not an act, and it's not something that you have to think about all the time. It's just something that you end up doing, and your decisions end up reflecting on on who you are. And I think to what you were saying, Cam, you can definitely grow as a leader. I think the important piece is to grow from experience, and grow from others' experiences, and not make it an act or not make it an effort thing. Just more or less, just make it a thing that you're always doing.
Love it.
Like I said, it's I am what I am, and that's what you're gonna end up getting. So
Hey,
whether whether it be good or bad, but
Birch, remind me what your wife does.
So she is in sales. So she was marketing while we were in
Yep.
Florida, and she's moved into. So she does jewelry sales. So she
Oh,
sells like
awesome.
wholesale jewelry to
Yeah.
like boutiques, stuff like that. So it's great.
Awesome.
She can kind of do it
Wherever.
wherever we are, and
Yep.
so being a military spouse, that's kind of one of those
Yeah.
things like they sacrifice. I mean,
Yep.
shit, she sacrifices more than I do. She
Right.
put her, career aspirations and dreams kind of on the back
Right.
burner to follow me around and do the military thing. So I'm
Right.
grateful for her. We try and make it work best for her as we can.
Right. I'll save the last words for Cam, but Birch, thanks very much. I mean, obviously, I think that you're wildly successful because of, just everything from your upbringing to all your various life experiences, like you say, and just your willingness to accept input and your willingness to accept mentorship and your willingness to want to just be a kind and nice and genuine person. And I think that cannot be underscored enough. And I think that, obviously your wife probably wouldn't have married you if she didn't think that you were that kind of person. And obviously you probably wouldn't have scored so high just from an Air Force perspective and just in our organization, because I did that just as much as I valued all the other experiences you brought, whether that was hockey or the academy or whatever. So anyways, you will continue to be wildly successful, and it goes without saying, but I'll say it, is if you ever need anything, whether it's now or in the future, please, I'm just a text away or an email or a phone call, and I'll stop what I'm doing to try to help you in the best way that I can. But thank you very much for your time. I know you could be out enjoying spring break, and you're here with us on the first ever The Colonel and the Coach on Leadership podcast. So thank you,
No,
Birch.
absolutely. Like I said, I was just lucky enough to be surrounded by some great people, and
Sure.
they've kind of allowed me to do what I've been able to accomplish, and I wouldn't be able to do any of that with any of them, and that's you two included. So I fully believe in what you guys are doing with this. I think you've both impacted me immensely in my life, and I've learned so much from you guys. When Cam told me that this is what you guys were kind of starting up as a venture, I was like, this is great. I fully believe in what you two are trying to do, and the impacts you guys could make on people is incredible. So like I said, it's been an honor, talking to you guys, and a privilege of knowing and working with you. And like I said, whatever you need, I'm here for it.
Thanks, Birch.
Yeah, Birch, really appreciate it. Again, I think you could argue pretty convincingly that none of this happens without you and connecting these dots. And I remember that, I'm not saying this is right or wrong, but I just remember you're like, hey, you're doing something a little different, and this Air Force colonel we got is doing something a little different. You guys should connect. And I did that. I reached out, and he was lucky enough or I was lucky enough for him to answer, and we met. And yeah, we've kind of connected over just trying to be good people and trying to make each other better. So, yeah, so thank you. Thanks for, again, being part of this, and hopefully this is a long run and you're the first of many. But again, I'd echo Colonel Smith that, as you know, anything that I could ever do, to get in touch with me, and we'll be talking soon.
Absolutely, and hopefully this isn't the last time I'm on.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
guys are you guys' success is gonna outweigh
Listen,
your
Birch,
conversation with me. So
if we make it big, I'm going to pay for you to get internet so that we can get a better service for you.
you kidding me? I'm paying for a hotspot on my phone right now to get this going. So
I like it. All right, man. Well, thank you so much.
yeah,
Thanks,
thank you
Birch.
guys. Great talking to you. Great seeing you.